Looking for magic cards? At flipsidegaming.com you can now use the promo code LVD to get a 10% discount on orders over $10 while supporting the channel at the same time. Hello and welcome to another episode of Friendly Friday, a weekly series where I take a look at budget, standard or modern decks, and this week we're taking a look at red-green Shamans in modern, a tribal deck that's looking to exploit Rageforger, a 3-mana 2/2 that says when Rageforger enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on each other Shaman you control, and whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it attacks, you may have that creature deal 1 damage to target player, so a very powerful effect in a tribal deck like this one, where most of our creatures are Shamans. So let's take a look at the entire list, starting out with our 1-drops, where we have 4 copies of Flamekin Harbinger, a 1-mana 1/1 elemental shaman that says when Flamekin Harbinger enters the battlefield, you can search your library for an elemental card, reveal it, shuffle your library, and then put the revealed card on top of it. So the goal of Flamekin Harbinger is simply to search up copies of a Rageforger, which besides being a shaman is also an elemental, and also synergizes quite nicely with the Rageforger, because that means that when we play the Rageforger, we will likely have a Harbinger still in play that can receive one of those +1/+1 counters and go to town on the opponent. Next up we have 4 copies of Lightning Bolt as our 1-mana interaction to deal with opposing creatures or just go to the face to finish off an opponent. Then we get to our 2-drops, where we have 4 copies of Elvish Visionary, a 2-mana 1/1 elf shaman that when she enters the battlefield we get to draw a card, so replaces itself and provides a body for Rageforger to put a +1/+1 counter onto so we can start attacking. Next up we have a spicy 1-off in Fauna Shaman, a 2-mana 2/2 with an activated ability where we can pay a green mana, tap the shaman, and then discard a creature card to search our library for any creature card and put it into our hand. So this helps us discard less useful creatures in the late game to search up more impactful cards like more copies of Rageforger, for example, and especially in sideboarded games we can search up our sideboard cards since they are all creatures, so that's also a nice benefit. Next up we have 4 copies of Sakura-Tribe Elder, a 2-mana 1/1 Snake Shaman that we can sacrifice at any point to search our library for a basic land card and put it into play tapped. So if this helps us ramp, we can even block with the Sakura-Tribe Elder once before we need to sacrifice him to save some life points. And if we already have plenty of lands, we can just keep the Elder around and maybe can accumulate one of those Rageforger counters and start attacking. Next up we have 4 copies of Wolf-Skull Shaman, a 2-mana 2/2 elf shaman with kinship, so at the beginning of our upkeep we can look at the top card of our library, and then if it shares a creature type with the shaman, we can reveal it, and if we do we get to make a 2/2 green wolf creature token, so provides a nice incremental advantage if we manage to hit a creature card, because every single creature in the main deck or sideboard are either elves or shamans, so we will always get a wolf token if we reveal a creature card. And then our final 2-drop is Burning-Tree Emissary, a 2-mana 2/2 human shaman that when she enters the battlefield we get to add a red and green mana to our mana pool, which can help us cast more copies of Burning-Tree Emissary or simply any one of our 2-drops or 1-drops, so it gives the deck a lot of explosive potential where we can perhaps empty our hand very quickly and then follow up with a Rageforger to put a +1/+1 counter on all our creatures to start beating down. And then of course we've already discussed our Rageforger, which is by far the most important card in the deck. Then we also have 1 copy of Eternal Witness, which happens to be a shaman, 3-mana 2/1 that when she enters the battlefield we can return a card from our graveyard back to our hand, so provides a nice little bit of card advantage and can maybe get back one of our valuable creatures that have died. Then we get to our 4-drops, which we can cast on turn 3 if we play a Sakura-Tribe Elder and sacrifice it on turn 2. And our first 4-drop is Leaf-Crowned Elder, a 4-mana 3/5 Treefolk Shaman that also has the kinship ability, so at the beginning of our upkeep we can look at the top card of our library, and then if it shares a creature type with the Elder, we can reveal it, and if we do, we get to play that card without paying its mana cost, so a very powerful effect that gives us incremental card advantage and also sort of a mana advantage. And something I should mention about our 2 kinship creatures is that they synergize very nicely with our Flamekin Harbinger, since we can simply set up the top card of our deck, which is going to be a Rageforger, which shares creature types with our Wolf-Skull Shaman and our Leaf-Crowned Elder. And last but not least, we have 4 copies of Bloodbraid Elf, which unfortunately is not a shaman, but it is an elf, so it does still share a creature type with our Wolf-Skull Shaman, so we do still get a wolf token out of it. And of course, Bloodbraid Elf, everyone knows by now, is a very powerful card, recently unbanned in Modern. We get a 3/2 with haste and cascade, so we get to cast a card for free Then quickly going over the mana base, we have 4 copies of Unclaimed Territory, which most of the time is gonna name Shaman. Sometimes it might name Elf, so we can cast a Bloodbraid Elf if we don't have any other colored sources, but that's more of an exception. Then we also have 3 copies of Raging Ravine, which is a very powerful land, and since we don't have a ton of 1-drops, we can pretty easily play it out on turn 1, and then in the late game it provides us with a nice creature to beat down with. That also synergizes with the Rage Forger, since it is a creature with a +1/+1 counter on it that will be attacking. Then we have a whole bunch of basic lands, 6 mountains, 5 forests, and to go with them we also have 2 Rootbound Crag, which comes into play untapped if we have a mountain or forest in play. And then we also have 3 copies of Copperline Gorge, which comes into play untapped if it's one of our first 3 lands. And finally we also have 1 copy of Pendelhaven, which comes into play untapped, so pretty low opportunity cost, and we can tap it to give one of our 1/1 creatures +1/+2 until end of turn. And as you can see, we have quite a few 1/1 creatures. We have our Harbinger, Elvish Visionary, and Sakura-Tribe Elder, so that can maybe get in for an additional point of damage here or there. Then taking a look at our sideboard, we have 2 copies of Essence Warden, mostly against burn decks, as a way to gain some life back. Then we have 2 copies of Burning-Tree Shaman, which can come in a variety of matchups, where the opponent might be activating a lot of non-mana abilities. We have 2 copies of Cunning Sparkmage to take out smaller creatures from the opponent. 2 copies of Loaming Shaman as a way to remove the opponent's graveyard temporarily. We have 3 copies of Goblin Ruinblaster as our budget alternative for Fulminator Mage, which of course would be the better card, but Ruinblaster still does a fine job of blowing up non-basic lands and getting in for some damage. We have 1 Reclamation Sage to blow up artifacts or enchantments, and to go with our Reclamation Sage we also have 2 copies of Vithian Renegades, which are also Shamans and only destroy artifacts, but they are a 3/2 compared to a 2/1 Reclamation Sage. And finally we also have 1 copy of Thrun, the Last Troll, a bit pricey in our budget deck, but I think it's worth it as it's a very powerful tool against control decks as an uncounterable threat that we can also regenerate. So that's the deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Alright, we're on the draw, and this hand's kind of strange in that we have our 2 one-offs here, but I think this is a keep. We've got some lands and spells, Witness for some redundancy, and then Shaman can maybe get one of our payoff cards. Turn 1 Ether Vial out of Island, so probably up against a Merfolk deck, which might be a rough matchup here, as they're probably a bit faster than we are. Burning-Tree is not bad, since that does speed up our draw a bit, so I think we're still supposed to run out the Ravine here, even though we do have the option of potentially bolting a Lord if our opponent just plays it here. So our opponent's probably thinking we're some sort of Jund deck. And right, Plains, never mind, so our opponent's not Merfolk, but they're probably some sort of blue-white Death and Taxes deck with a bunch of Spellquellers. Alright, so now we could go Burning-Tree into Fauna Shaman, which is quite appealing. And then next turn we can maybe use the Shaman, discard the Harbinger, get it back with Witness, and so on. So yeah, let's go with Burning-Tree first. And run out the Fauna Shaman. Say go. Opponent's gonna use a Path to Exile on the Shaman right away. So let's go get ourselves a forest. So it is exiled, so we don't get to get it back with Eternal Witness, which is unfortunate, but I guess we'll just be buying back a Lightning Bolt or something. Bloodstained Mire, interesting. Did not expect to see that one. Gets a Watery Grave, and our opponent's gonna Inquisition us, probably taking Eternal Witness. So this game's not going great for us, but we could turn it around with maybe a top deck Bloodbraid Elf into something awesome. And I guess our opponent still hasn't presented any creatures, so... Alright, they do take the Witness. Let's untap. And another Bolt is not bad. So let's start by getting in for 2. Opponent takes it, and then we'll run out the Harbinger and get ourselves our 3-drop. And say go. So we've got 2 Lightning Bolts up. Let's see what they vial in. A Selfless Spirit. Alright, so we're up against an Esper Spirits deck. So do need to time these Lightning Bolts at the right time, since opponent's got a lot of ways to give their creatures hexproof. But at the moment we're not in a hurry to use the Lightning Bolt. Spirit gets in. So our opponent actually doesn't know about the second lightning bolt, so if they violin a Drogskull Captain, we can still kill the captain. I guess then they make it indestructible with Selfless Spirit, but then we still essentially trade for the Selfless Spirit, so I think we're fine using a lightning bolt here after all. Would just be bad if our opponent has a Rattle Chains, I suppose. Opponent is gonna violin something, so in response we're gonna use a lightning bolt. So they might be vialing in a Drogskull Captain, and right, they did have the Rattle Chains after all, so they can give the Selfless Spirit hexproof. Drogskull Captain will come into play, and then we can bolt the Drogskull Captain, and then our opponent will probably sacrifice the Selfless Spirit. So that's still a fine exchange here for us. And our opponent's empty-handed, so we get to resolve our Rage Forger, and we'll be up against the Rattle Chains and the Drogskull Captain, most likely. So Selfless Spirit gets sacrificed, we don't take any damage, and the Captain is indestructible. But now our opponent is out of tricky stuff. And then next turn we also get to activate Ravine if we miss on a draw step. So yeah, let's go to our main phase, run out Rage Forger, attack with both. So our opponent falls to 13, let's see if they make any trades. They don't, so they fall to 8. And we'll play the Unclaimed Territory, naming Shaman, and say go. Alright, so let's just hope our opponent doesn't draw anything too powerful here, and then next turn we can attack for quite a bunch, and we're still at 20, so that's the advantage of a painless mana base. Opponent is gonna stay on defense, interesting. If they have another Drogskull Captain, that would be painful. Think I'm only gonna attack with our 2 creatures with +1/+1 counters, don't wanna risk getting the Rage Forger killed by an ambush, but I will be attacking with the Raging Ravine as well. So let's get in there. So the Raging Ravine gets a counter, and then next turn it will also deal a damage with the Rage Forger, but this turn it doesn't. Alright, our opponent did find a Selfless Spirit, so they basically get to trade Selfless Spirit for our 2 creatures here. So that's a good exchange for the opponent, but we still get our Raging Ravine going here. So our opponent does get to block our Ravine as well, sacrifice a Selfless Spirit, and eat our 2 creatures. But next turn we can attack with the 5/5 Ravine, which will also deal 1 damage to our opponent, so essentially a lethal threat. So if our opponent misses on their draw step, we are still in a good spot. Opponent's getting a bit aggressive here, attacking with the Rattle Chains and the Captain as well. Perhaps they drew into another path to exile. Alright, never mind, they're staying home. Let's see what we draw. Elvish Visionary. I suppose we should have played our land last turn for this exact scenario. If we find a land with a Visionary, then we could have still activated Ravine. But I think regardless, we would have probably still activated the Ravine here. So let's go ahead and activate it. Hope our opponent didn't draw into a removal spell. And I will just be attacking with the Ravine, I think. Opponent could also have cards like Spell Queller that could have just ambushed the Rage Forger. So our opponent falls to 5, and they're facing a 5/5 attacker. Another Selfless Spirit, alright. So I guess our opponent gets to trade Selfless Spirit once again for the Raging Ravine. So 2 good draws from our opponent, but we're not out of it yet. Another Aether Vial to draw, so at least our opponent didn't draw any creatures this turn. And they just get in with Rattle Chains, interesting. So they're willing to trade Lords, perhaps. Alright, Leaf-Crowned Elder is a nice draw for sure. Think we're fine trading and then just playing the Elder instead of the Visionary. And I can't imagine our opponent not blocking, since then they're just dead to a Lightning Bolt. So second main, we'll run out the Elder. And say go. Rattle Chains gets aggressive, and we do get to untap. Let's see what's on top. Copperline Gorge, so not the draw we were looking for. So let's run out Visionary. No Spell Queller from the opponent, but a Bloodbraid Elf, and unfortunately got punished here for the Copperline Gorge. But that's fine, still a nice draw for next turn. So let's get in. And Anafenza flash thanks to the rattle chains. So just a chum blocker from the opponent, probably. So that's a nice exchange for us. Every turn that goes by, our opponent falls further and further behind. And next turn the Bloodbraid Elf is probably going to be game over unless they have a Spell Queller. Rattle Chain stays on defense. Let's see what's on top. A Forest, so not great. Think we'll play around perhaps a Mana Leak. You never know. Run out a Bloodbraid Elf, Cascade. And Lightning Bolt. It's probably just going to do it here. Let's go to combat, and our opponent needs multiple blockers. Alright, they're activating their Vial. Adaptive Automaton, naming Spirits, so the Rattle Chains is a 3-2. Still have to chump our Elder, and they have to block our Bloodbraid Elf, so doesn't really change much. So our opponent gets another turn here, but they need multiple answers now since the Visionary is also lethal. So unless the opponent's playing perhaps Lingering Souls, which would also explain the Black Splash. I think they're dead. Did they find it? They did not. Alright, on to sideboarding against Spirits. So a tricky matchup for sure. So I think we want to bring in our copies of Cunning Sparkmage to take out the 1 toughness creatures. Not really too worried about either Vial. So I think we're just gonna maybe shave a Burning Tree, maybe even just 2 Burning Trees. We could also consider Thrun the Last Troll as a threat that our opponent will have a hard time dealing with. Could actually see bringing Thrun in here. Take out another Burning Tree. So after sideboard we're just a tad more controlling. And this hand is a difficult one to keep with only 1 land. But we do also have the Sakura-Tribe Elder. I think this is still a mulligan just because if we miss on our first 2 draw steps, it's pretty much lights out. And we also don't have any interaction for the opponent, so let's go to 6. And this 6 is not great, but I don't think we can mulligan. And Mountain goes to the bottom. Serum Visions. So turn 1 we can just play Copperline Gorge, represent Lightning Bolt. Or I guess we can play a tapped Crag since we don't have a Forest or a Mountain yet. And alright, I guess that's the plan here. And there's no need to sacrifice the Elder to get a land here since don't have any 4-drops in hand and plenty of lands already. Creeping Tarpit. No play from the opponent early on. And a 3rd Rage Forger, alright. So we have a pretty clear plan here. So this Sakura-Tribe Elder is going to end up with quite a few +1/+1 counters. An island into Geist of St. Drafts, alright, that's fine. We could keep the Elder on defense in case they kill or Rage Forger, but I also don't mind just attacking with the Elder, and then if our opponent attacks we can block and trade. If they kill the Rage Forger, then we just play another one, and then we're fine with that. So let's play Territory, name Shaman, run out to Rage Forger, and get in for essentially 3. And their opponent's just gonna take it. So let's see if they have a removal spell for Rage Forger. I guess they could also have a Drogskull Captain, which would be a little awkward, and they're gonna use Inquisition to check out our hand. Take a Rage Forger, so Drogskull Captain would be quite painful here if our opponent has it, since then if we block, opponent just gets to eat it. Instead they just have a Path to Exile, so they just dismantled our entire hand here, which is unfortunate. And now the Geist gets in for 6, which was the risk of attacking with the Sakura-Tribe Elder. So ideally we draw 2-drop, so we can play the 2-drop and the Rage Forger, have some blockers back for the Geist, and can keep attacking with the Sakura-Tribe Elder. The fail case is just Ravine plus Rage Forger. Alright, we did find a 2-drop, so I guess we're playing it. And if this resolves, I will definitely get in with the Sakura-Tribe Elder. Gotta keep the train rolling. And now we have 2 blockers for the Geist. Didn't get to develop Raging Ravine this turn, which is unfortunate, but still have plenty of power and toughness going on. And now if our opponent attacks, we can just double block. That way a Drogskull Captain isn't a blowout. I guess if they have Captain plus another path, we're in trouble. Alright, they do have path number 2, that's fine. Let's get a Mountain. And do they have another removal spell? Alright, they are fetching. Perhaps getting frisky with the Creeping Tar Pit. Our opponent did have a swamp after all. Alright, Tar Pit's getting in there. So our opponent's willing to race. And yeah, I'll definitely block the Geist here and trade. Opponent could have a second copy in hand, so be it. So we take 7 down to 7. And our opponent's left with a Creeping Tar Pit as their only threat. So this is the perfect time to draw Bloodbraid Elf. Wolf-Skull Shaman's not the worst. So let's get in for 3 and play Raging Ravine plus Shaman, so 2 threats that combined with the Sakura-Tribe Elder are lethal, so our opponent does have to respect that. 8 tapped Seachrome Coast, 2 cards left for the opponent. And alright, there's a Lingering Souls finally. We were expecting those, but we still have decent attacks here. If our opponent wants to trade all Lingering Souls for Raging Ravine, so be it. If they just want to make some chumps, that's also fine. And let's see if we can find a creature here. Unclaimed Territory. That's not what we were looking for. So let's fire up the Ravine. And I think we just send with everyone. I suppose we could leave back the Shaman to provide more wolf tokens, but don't want to put our eggs in that basket. And if our opponent trades for the Shaman, then the Raging Ravine survives, which is also pretty important. And our opponent is forced to block. They can attack us back for 6 with the Creeping Tar Pit and the Spirit, so opponent with a pretty aggressive line here. And it could pay off. I don't think they can kill us next turn unless they have an untapped land into Drogskull Captain, but they can definitely do some damage. And a Mausoleum Wanderer. So I guess our opponent's on the attack with a few creatures plan and then leave enough blockers back to survive. So Creeping Tar Pit gets in there. And I think our best draw is Bloodbraid Elf. A Lightning Bolt by itself I don't think does it. I guess we can maybe kill the Tar Pit, but we'll already be at 3. So opponent leaves back 3 blockers. So yeah, looking for a Bloodbraid Elf here. Rage Forger perhaps also does it. So what's on top? Bloodbraid, alright. And it is an elf, so let's try to live the dream here. Don't have enough mana to Bloodbraid and activate Ravine, but I have to imagine that playing the Bloodbraid is better than activating the Ravine here. So let's Cascade, and there's a Rage Forger. So does that do it? So we go to combat, attack with everyone. Opponent falls to 2, and they have 3 blockers. So we don't quite get there, unfortunately, but a pretty good effort by the deck. So their opponent has to chump all 3, and then they fall to 2 life, but then the Creeping Tar Pit is just enough to kill us here. Alright, good effort, good effort. Our opponent sees a line, and we'll have to fight a game 3 here. So do we want to change anything? Do we want our Burning-Tree Emissaries back in the deck? They seem kind of weak if our opponent has tons of interaction like Inquisition and Path to Exile, since then they can just take the payoff cards, leave us with a bunch of 2/2s. So I think I like the configuration as is. Perhaps we don't need the Thrun, but now that we're on the play it gets a bit better. So I think we'll run it back. And unfortunately not our 1-lander, we have to mulligan despite the triple Visionary and Elder. And it's alright, I suppose we can keep this one. Another triple Rage Forger draw, so let's keep. And Visionary, it's actually an interesting one since we kind of want that, but if we play Harbinger on 1, then we shuffle it away regardless. I think I'll keep that on top. And then I think I don't search with the Harbinger here. Just play it as a 1/1 Shaman essentially. And then we can curve Visionary into 2 Rage Forgers, which seems better than just playing Harbinger and then doing nothing on turn 2. So let's pass a turn. Turn 1 Island into Wanderer, so opponent does have a blocker for the Harbinger. Let's go ahead and play the Visionary and say go. So as long as our opponent doesn't have too much disruption, we could get there with double Rage Forger, but if they have a bunch of Inquisitions and Path to Exiles, then we're in trouble. Another Wanderer, Pumps the first one and the vial. Alright, so not the worst for us here. Especially for opponent attack, since that frees up an attack with our 2 powered creatures next turn. Another Visionary is nice, but we're just jamming the Rage Forger. And getting in for essentially 6, so that's not bad. Opponent takes it, falls to 14. And next turn we get to do it all over again. It's actually pretty interesting. If our opponent didn't have basic swamp in their deck, they would have actually ended up dying. So it just goes to show how thin the margins can be. Alright, our opponent with a pretty efficient turn here. Fatal push on Rage Forger into Selfless Spirit. But they are still getting quite aggressive here, which definitely plays in our favor. So let's run out another Rage Forger. And get in for essentially 8. Opponent jumps in front, so just a chum block. That's good. And then we'll play Ravine, which next turn can also rumble in there. So for a mulligan to 6, we're putting up a pretty good fight. So what are the remaining cards for the opponent? I guess if they have a Lingering Souls, that could be annoying. Serum Visions is fine. Any play that doesn't affect the board is good for us. And their opponents didn't float any white mana, so they might have another blue spell they want to play here. And it also excludes Path to Exile most likely, and they can't Fatal Push the Rage Forger. Another Mausoleum Wanderer, pumps the first 2. But yeah, we are mostly a creature-based deck, so the Wanderer is mostly just a creature that gets a bit larger when they play Spirits, which is still a fine card, but not as threatening as it could be. So opponent gets in for 4, we fall to 10. And our opponent needs to have something they can flash in here to block with. And Bloodbraid is interesting. So we could just activate Ravine, or we can just jam this Bloodbraid Elf, which seems pretty appealing here. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna jam Bloodbraid. Trigger Cascade. And Cunning Sparkmage is quite good here as well. I don't think we activate the Sparkmage pre-combat here, since our opponent could have something like a Rattle Chains to give it hexproof, or just Spirits to flash in to pump the Wanderer with. So we'll just attack with everyone except for a Sparkmage, and then see what happens. And if our opponent taps the Vial, I will Sparkmage down the Wanderer, I think, which I guess opens up the door to Fatal Push, but then we're still in a pretty decent spot, I think. So opponent activates Vial, we'll shoot down the Wanderer. And do they have a Fatal Push? Even if they do, I guess they can kill one of them, block the other one, take 5 down to 1. And then they're just dead to the Sparkmage next turn. And we got the GGs from our opponent, so there we go. Managed to beat Esper Spirits with our red-green Shaman deck. We'll be back with the next one. Alright, we're on the play. And this hand seems quite good, so let's keep. And we can Harbinger, get another Rage Forger, turn 2 go Burning-Tree into Elder, and go from there. And a tapped Celestial Colonnades up against a blue-white control deck most likely. Let's hope to dodge sweeper effects. So let's go ahead and name Shaman. Run out the Burning-Tree. And run out the Sakura-Tribe Elder. And attack for 1. And then end of turn we can get another basic land with the Elder and start casting Rage Forgers. If we knew we were gonna draw an untapped land next turn, of course I wouldn't sacrifice the Elder, since it can add up to quite a bit of damage. And Wall of Omens is annoying, but the Forger still does something. So end of turn, let's sacrifice. Probably doesn't matter too much, but I guess we have more red cards. And yep, let's just cast Rage Forger. And get in there. So our opponent will fall to 15 here. Next turn a second Rage Forger is going to add up to quite a bit of damage. Opponent leaving up 3 mana, so they could have access to all kinds of counter spells. So perhaps not the best idea to run out another Rage Forger here. So let's start by moving to combat and deal some more damage to our opponent. And then we can play the Elder, which also kind of plays around the sweeper effect, since we can just sacrifice it and get a land, and then refuel with Elvish Visionaries, which sets up our second Rage Forger nicely. Alright, Vendilion Clique, did not expect that one. So they can take a look at our hand and perhaps trade with the Rage Forger. And they decided to take the Rage Forger, but we got a Bloodbraid in return, so that's fair. Opponent is trading, so they only take 2 here in combat, and then second main we can run out the Elder and say go. End of turn, get a forest. And let's just Bloodbraid. Best hit is probably a Rage Forger here. Lightning bolts, I think we'll just point at our opponent. We could point it at the wall, but then they just don't block, and it's basically like dealing 3 damage to our opponent anyways. So might as well point it upstairs. And if they have some weird card like main deck Settle the Wreckage, then at least we got to deal 3 damage to them. Instead it's the Restoration Angel to blink the wall and ambush one of our creatures. So opponent clearly more on the blink plan than the pure blue-white control deck. The advantage of playing this version, of course, is that you kind of catch your opponent off guard in game 1, and they get to eat a creature for free with Restoration Angel. But they probably have fewer Wrath of God type effects, so now we can play accordingly. And our opponent is at 5, so there's that. Gideon Jura, yeah, that one's pretty annoying here, since now we can no longer attack our opponent's life total, and our opponent can just eat our creatures with the Resto Angel. Instead, they decided to kill the Burning-Tree. I'm fine with that. Alright, Wolf-Skull Shaman. So I think we just start by playing a Visionary here. Another Bloodbraid is good. So here we have a few options. Kind of like just adding another Elvish Visionary to the board, which we don't really mind if it dies. And there's Rage Forger, alright. Rage Forger is great here, since that can let us deal damage to our opponent, even if we are attacking Gideon Jura. Opponent says go. Opponent could have access to a card like Cryptic Command here. If their plan is just to animate Colonnade, the best place to just play the Rage Forger to deal some damage to our opponent. If their plan is Cryptic Command, maybe playing the Bloodbraid is better. But I think I'm not gonna play around Cryptic Command here, since that one's kind of difficult to play around. So let's just run out a Rage Forger, see what happens. Alright, they did have it. That's unfortunate. So now we're forced to attack. Gideon only takes 1. So we'll have to try again next turn. Gideon keeps plussing. And we can't really rely on Raging Ravine because of Field of Ruin here. Resto getting aggressive, so they might have a second one they want to flash in, which would make sense. Alright. Is this a draw step clique? That's unfortunate, so they get to take away the Bloodbraid Elf, but if they do, we could just draw into another Rage Forger and just maybe steal a win. And alright, another Burning-Tree. So I think we're just unloading our hand here. Don't see a reason not to, so let's start by attacking. Play the Shaman. Play the Elder. And hope to top deck a Rage Forger. Field of Ruin on Raging Ravine end of turn thins out our deck, so we're more likely to find a Rage Forger. Of course, we get totally annihilated by a Supreme Verdict here, but we're kind of in a rough spot regardless. And our opponent attacking with both kind of indicates a Verdict is incoming. Gideon pluses. Alright, never mind. I will sack the Elder because I want to increase our chance of finding the Rage Forger, which I think at this point is our only out. Found a Raging Ravine instead. Alright, let's attack with everyone. Snapcaster Mage, Cryptic, tap our team, and their opponent can attack us for more than lethal. Guess we keep the Raging Ravine in hand just to pretend like we have some interaction. Opponent attacks with everyone, and we're dead. Alright. On to game 2 against Blue-White Control, which is a pretty rough matchup for the deck. I mean, opponent has a lot of removal and counter spells, and we're just a tribal creature deck, so don't expect to win this one, but we can try. So, do like Goblin Ruinblasters here, just to mess with our opponent's mana a little bit. And don't think we want the Sparkmage or anything else here. The Burning-Tree Shaman punishes the opponent for using Field of Ruin and Planeswalker activations. I guess that's worth it. What do we take out? I think we take out the Burning-Tree Emissaries, just because I don't expect us to win the game that way by just unloading all our creatures onto the board. And I think we can take out 2 Wolf-Skull Shamans, because again, I don't think that's how we win the game. Would like to be on a play. And this hand is not great. We've got a Harbinger, can get a Rage Forger, and then turn 3 we can play a Rage Forger into another one. Don't think we can mulligan, and we did increase our curve after sideboard, so having 4 lands is not the end of the world, so I guess we'll keep. And then run out Mountain into Harbinger, get a Rage Forger. Don't think any of our sideboard cards are elementals, can just double check here. Nope. Alright, let's get a Rage Forger, say go. Suppose we could have led with Unclaimed Territory in case our opponent is on Spreading Seas, but I don't think they are, since they're probably just playing Wall of Omens instead. So let's play Territory, name Shaman, and get in for 1. Lightning Bolt is also not great, but we did see Vendilion Clique from our opponent, so we at least can kill some creatures. And if our opponent plays something like a wall, maybe we can combine Lightning Bolt with an attack to take it out. Not a great proposition, since opponent gets a free 2-for-1, but you gotta do what you gotta do. Goblin Ruinblaster is a nice pickup. I think we just Rage Forger and get in for essentially 1. And then next turn we can Ruinblaster with Kicker. And then the turn after we can use a second Rage Forger to increase our clock a bit. Another tapped Colonnade. Alright, so yeah, let's just run out the Ruinblaster. Kick the Ruinblaster here. Opponent does not have a counterspell, so we get to kill the Colonnade. Opponent with Celestial Purge taking out Rage Forger. Alright, it's not bad. Still get to get in for 2. Basically, we have to hope that our opponent is stuck on 2 lands, but that's not the case. Alright, Bloodbraid is a nice one, and I think we play that over Rage Forger just because that's likely to find us a Shaman, and then Rage Forger can put more counters on stuff. And also, if our opponent has a counter up here, this plays better around the counterspell. So trigger Cascade. Visionary, it's not bad. And let's get in with everyone. Path on Bloodbraid. Let's get a Mountain here. Opponent takes 2 down to 14. And then we can play the Gorge. 4 mana, so this is where our opponent has Restoration Angel at the ready. I actually wouldn't mind seeing a sweeper effect from the opponent here, since we wouldn't really lose all that much. And also clears the Wall of Omens. It would be a lot more difficult to play around the Restoration Angel. Opponent decides to pass the turn. Raging Ravine the draw. So this kind of gives us an insurance plan in case our opponent does have a sweeper effect next turn. So I think the plan is to play a Rage Forger, put a counter on everything, attack with everyone. If they flash in Restoration Angel, we can finish it off with Lightning Bolt. And then we can even also play the Shaman. So let's start by playing Rage Forger. Resolves, go to combat. So pretty clearly our opponent has Restoration Angel here, but we're fine with that. So there's Resto, flickers a Wall of Omens, opponent gets to draw card, and they get to eat our Harbinger here most likely. Interesting, they trade for the Ruinblaster, so let's bolt the Resto Angel, and then I think we just commit this Shaman, and then if our opponent does have the Sweeper, we can still hit them with the Ravine. And alright, there's a Supreme Verdict. So now we have to hope they don't also have a Path to Exile. Thrun the last troll. Now that's interesting. I think we actually still activate Ravine just to force them to answer the Ravine first. I suppose not playing Thrun gets punished if our opponent has a Vendilion Click to take it out of our hand. I don't know, I kind of feel like getting in with the Ravine is pretty good here, since that puts the opponent to 5, and that to another Ravine activation. And then we can play the Thrun to kind of diversify our threats a bit. And if they have a path here, so be it. So let's get in there. Alright, they don't have it, so they fall to 5. And now our opponent's gonna be forced to keep up an answer to the Ravine, which opens up the door for Thrun to be pretty effective. Spreading Seas, alright, I guess that works. So our opponent found an answer to the Ravine, but they're at 4, facing down a Thrun next turn. So hopefully they don't have a Clique here. That's the only concern. Alright, we're in our main phase, so avoided the Clique. So time to run out Thrun, make sure to keep up as much green mana as possible. And there's Thrun, can be countered. So unless our opponent has a Wrath of God, which prevents regeneration, we should be good to go. And I'm definitely not running out the Burning-Tree Shaman, since we want to keep up regeneration in case they have another Supreme Verdict. So how does our opponent deal with Thrun? I guess with some niche sideboard cards like Settler Wreckage, Wrath of God. Or they can try to race us, but that seems unlikely. So our opponent with Snapcaster, Path. I guess they can path their own Snapcaster if they want to. If they need the land for some reason. I guess they could have an Elspeth Sun's Champion, that would also be pretty effective. Although then the Burning-Tree Shaman has a shot at being useful. So our opponent did decide to ram themselves. And is this an Elspeth? Just a wall, so that buys them a little bit of time. And a Jace the Mind Sculptor, there we go. Alright, that's a pretty good one. That can certainly find a potential answer to the Thrun if they have one in their deck. Probably one of the better ways to find it. So let's go to combat and attack our opponent since they're at 4. Opponent blocks. And Shaman here is not bad against an active Jace. And I think we'll keep the Forest in hand since I don't foresee needing to regenerate 3 times with Thrun. And maybe your opponent is incentivized to click us in our draw step or something. There's a Snapcaster. Opponent can purge the Shaman here. So they have another blocker for Thrun. So they bought themselves another turn. Jace is gonna Brainstorm. So Lightning Bolt potentially wins us the game if we can kill the Snapcaster, get in for 4. Bloodbraid would be pretty decent as well. So we've got a few decent draws. Opponent falls to 3. So they wanted to shuffle their deck after brainstorming. And Kitchen Finks, alright, that puts them back up to 3, I guess. A bit of a risky play given that we still had a card in hand, but could be that they used the +2 on our deck and knew that we had a Forest in hand, not sure. Just gonna keep attacking our opponent here, since attacking Jace doesn't really do much when he's at 5. Opponent instantly chumps, goes back up to 5, and I'll go ahead and play the Harbinger. Opponent can use the +2 to get rid of the card we search for here, but that's fine. Say go. I guess our opponent also has the option of using Jace to bounce Kitchen Finks over and over again. We do need to find something here, since at the moment we're not really gonna be able to break this board stall. And every turn that Jace is active is a turn that our opponent has more resources. And now between the Finks, the Snapcaster and the Colonnade, our opponent has plenty of blockers for the Thrun. So let's draw. So our opponent did indeed get rid of our Rage Forger, so let's go ahead and attack just with the Thrun because our opponent can block with the Colonnade. Opponent with Cryptic to tap our team and bounce a Finks. Yep, that's gonna buy them some time. But at least now we get to resolve the Harbinger. Get another Rage Forger. And say go. Let's see who it targets. Targets the opponent. So let's see what they put on the bottom. Spell Snare makes sense. So our opponent can replay Finks. Let's see if they decide to +2 the Jace or Brainstorm. Opponent does +2, so they are slowly getting up to ultimate range, so we want to keep as many cards in hand as possible. And at this point, I don't really see us winning the game unless we can top deck something very powerful. Opponent's actually gonna animate the Colonnade, get aggressive. So they still have the kitchen things they can replay here. And unfortunately we just drew a land, so let's go ahead and attack. So we could attack with the Harbingers as well, so let's attack with everyone. Alright, they're playing it safe. So glad that we attacked with everyone. Opponent goes back up to 8. I'll say go. And against a more traditional blue-white control deck, Thrun would have been a lot better, since they don't have all these random creatures that can block and gain life. But against this particular version with walls and restoration angels, they do have some more tools to navigate their way around Thrun. Colonnade gets activated, so we might see a Jace minus to bounce the Finks and replay it. Or if they have a Cryptic Command in hand, I guess that can also win them the game. So let's see. Yep, they bounce the Finks. So do we still have an out here? Opponent goes back up to 10. So it's gotta be Bloodbraid into something. And I'm not even sure what. Bolt doesn't do it. Yeah, I think we're pretty dead here. Guess we can attack with Thrun. Opponent's gonna block with the Finks. And then if they try to bounce the Finks and somehow don't attack us for lethal, we can bolt the Finks in response. But that's also kind of a stretch. Alright, so let's bolt the Finks. And that's gonna do it. And Colonnade comes in for lethal. Alright, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the play. And this hand unfortunately only has the one land, a bit heavy on our 4-drops. So I don't think we can keep. And alright, this one actually works, since we can use the Burning-Tree to filter green mana, so we can play the Elder as well. So let's keep, and I don't think we want another bolt. Would rather find some action. So let's play Mountains, say go. Up against Swamp. Into Cryptbreaker, alright, that's a nice target for Lightning Bolt. Might be up against some sort of zombie or madness deck. Alright, found a forest anyways, so I guess we just play Burning-Tree into Shaman now, since we don't really need access to 4 mana right away, and this might get something going. So hopefully they can't kill the Wolf-Skull Shaman. 2 mana for a Smuggler's Copter, alright. Does look like a zombie deck. Let's see if we can find a Shaman off the top. We cannot. Raging Ravine. Alright, let's get in for 4. And then the Tribe Elder can actually ramp us into activating the Ravine, so that actually wasn't all that bad. And they're confident, that's fine. Does our opponent attack with the Copter or stay on defense? They are getting in there. So pretty aggressive here. And we actually don't mind, given that we're gonna attack with the Raging Ravine next turn most likely. So let's let our opponent loot first. So next turn we'll be attacking for 8. Opponent discards a Error of Falconwrath, so perhaps more a Madness deck than an actual zombie deck, since now the Dark Confidant as well. So end of turn, let's sacrifice, get a forest. Hope to find a Shaman on top. An Elf would also be fine, and yep, we did find an Elder. So now we could actually just play the Elder instead of activating the Raging Ravine. Activating Raging Ravine also sounds pretty appealing, so I think I'm gonna go with the more aggressive option. Since now that we got a Wolf token, we could just start going wide as well. Opponent takes 8 down to 8. And they kind of have to answer the board. Cryptbreaker, opponent loses 1 life. Opponent's also been stuck on 2 mana, which isn't helping them. There's a Cryptbreaker, and now is their opponent staying on defense. That makes sense. Alright, let's untap. And alright, we found a Harbinger. So now we can set up our 2 kinship cards, which is quite nice. So I don't think we'll be attacking this turn. Opponent could also have Fatal Push for the Raging Ravine. So let's just run out the Elder. And then run out the Harbinger. And this is gonna work out quite beautifully. So let's get our Rage Forger. And then next turn we'll get a Wolf. We'll get to cast Rage Forger for free. And probably just kill our opponent. Alright, there's a Fatal Push, just killing our Wolf-Skull Shaman, not the end of the world. And our opponent still has to stay on defense here, but they're taking damage from the Dark Confidant. Alright, they did find a third land, but I think Rage Forger still just kills them next turn, if they can't kill any of our creatures. Alright, our opponent has a Victim of Night for our Elder, so we don't get a free Rage Forger, but we do still get a Rage Forger, so there's that. So here we can just play Rage Forger, put 2 counters on our Shamans, and then deal 2 damage just by attacking with our 2 Shamans, and then our opponent has 2 blockers to our 4 attackers, which are all at least 2 power, so our opponent should just be dead here. So despite our opponent killing both of our kinship creatures, they do end up dying here. Alright, on to sideboarding against a mono-black discard deck with quite a bit of spot removal. So Thrun seems decent in this matchup. We could consider our Renegades to blow up Smuggler's Copter. Don't think we want a Loaming Shaman, didn't see any Lingering Souls. I guess Cunning Sparkmage is actually quite good here as well, since it can kill Dark Confidant and Crypt Breaker. So probably want Cunning Sparkmage here. I think that's it though. I don't think we want the Artifact Destruction. Seems a bit narrow. What do we want to take out? Perhaps Fauna Shaman is a bit slow. And I could see the Burning-Tree plan not being the best. So yeah, let's try this. And this hand seems quite good. Pretty balanced. Got a Lightning Bolt for an early threat from the opponent. And then we get to curve out nicely. So turn 1 Swamp into nothing. Did pick up another 4-drop, so we do want to make sure to draw another land here. But for now we're fine. So let's see if the opponent has a turn 2 Dark Confidant. Instead, Air of Falconwrath. I think I'm still fine bolting that one, just to use our mana efficiently if we're gonna try and curve out here. Alright, there's a land, so get to play Shaman number 1. And there's the Dark Confidant, so that's fine. And a Fatal Push. Alright, so our opponent's no nonsense here. Just gets the Shaman out of here, which does make our Rage Forger a bit worse. And there's a Thrun, which is interesting. So we've got quite a bit of 4-drops. Think we're still running out Rage Forger, even though it's not at its best here. But it still seems like we want to spend our mana efficiently. And maybe this can get in for a few points. And then I'm not sure which 4-drop we should lead with. Probably Bloodbraid Elf, but I could see the other ones being better in some scenarios. There's a Crypt Breaker. Alright, no attacks. Yeah, I think we just jam Bloodbraid Elf here. Don't think we can go wrong with that. So let's Cascade. And yep, I'll take an Elvish Visionary. Another Rage Forger is nice. Probably not playing that one next turn, since we're better off playing some more Shamans first. But these ones are good to go. And our opponent just taking 5. Alright. Opponent reveals a second Swamp, so at this time they're getting a bit luckier with their Confidant flips. Alright, just a Smuggler's Copter. And our opponent's using the Crypt Breaker right away to make a zombie token. Alright, another Elvish Visionary, so we could actually go Visionary into Rage Forger, which is actually quite appealing here, since that means we get a decent attack with our Rage Forger number 1, and we get quite a bit of triggers as well from our 2 Rage Forgers, since we could even consider attacking with the Visionary, although that one would just die to the Smuggler's Copter, so maybe not that one. Or we could play it slow, but then we only get to play a 4-drop instead of getting to double spell. So I think I like ring out Visionary here. A Lightning Bolt is also not bad, but I think I still like being more mana efficient here. And I will be attacking with the Rage Forger, since I'm fine trading that one for the Copter. And Bloodbraid can also trade with a zombie, that's fine by me. So 2 triggers. And then next turn we can maybe use the Lightning Bolt to take out the Copter if our opponent tries to block. Opponent is crewing the Copter, so they are looking to trade here. So they're trading for Rage Forger and for Bloodbraid. Alright, so our opponent is trading for both creatures, which is fine. Still have a pretty good late game with our hand here. And then next turn we might just kill the Dark Confidant, but we'll see. And alright, our opponent did also have a fatal push to take out the last Rage Forger. So our opponent's empty-handed revealed a Blood-Soaked Champion, so an aggressive 1-drop, but we can keep that one at bay with our 4-drops. So yeah, it's probably time to kill the Dark Confidant and then get our own card advantage going. Opponent discards the champion. They can get it back if they attack with a creature here. So let's see if the Confidant gets in there. It does, that's pretty aggressive. I'm fine with the trade here. Don't think we need to double block. So our opponent can get back their Blood-Soaked Champion, but we have pretty good blockers. And alright, a Dread Wanderer as well. So we could use the Lightning Bolt right now, because our opponent does have 3 zombies, so they could start drawing cards. And then we can just play the Elder, and then next turn we can play Thrun and keep up regeneration mana. That seems fine. So let's kill the Crypt Breaker. And then run out the Elder. Don't think our opponent's playing Liliana of the Veil. Let's just pass, keep the Visionary on defense. And now our opponent's only drawing 1 card a turn, and we might be drawing multiples. So our opponent needs a removal spell for the Elder here. Alright, opponent's sending in everyone. So I'm trading here, and then let's see, this costs 2 mana, this costs 3 mana. This comes tapped and can block, this can block. Not a huge difference, but I guess we'll block the Wanderer since that's a bit more expensive to use. So the trades happen, and does our opponent just get back a Dread Wanderer? They do. And they're passing. Alright, so let's see, can we find a creature? A Cunning Sparkmage, that'll do. And that also cleans up the opponent's creatures nicely. So let's go ahead and play out our Thrun. And I'm actually going to get in there with the Elder, since now we have a blocker and a way to kill one of the opponent's creatures. Don't think there's a reason to activate the Sparkmage quite yet, perhaps at the beginning of combat. Victim of Night on the Elder, that makes sense. And a Dark Salvation for 1 to take out the Sparkmage. So that's gonna work no matter what. Suppose we can kill the Dread Wanderer here, or we can ping our opponent to 8. But Dread Wanderer can block, so I think we want to get that out of the way. Alright, so all of a sudden opponent managed to kill 2 of our creatures, and we need to draw some more action. Tribe Elder not the best here, so can we afford to attack? Think so, since we're still pretty ahead in life totals. Next turn they will be able to get back the Dread Wanderer, but we do still have a Sakura-Tribe Elder to block with. These recursive creatures are a decent way of getting around Thrun, since they can just suicide attack and get them back. So we could block the champion here, and then sacrifice to get a land, or we can just keep the Elder around in case we find another Rage Forger. I think we keep the Elder around for now, so we'll take 2. And our opponent gets back Dread Wanderer tapped. So Pendelhaven is actually quite nice here as well, since we can use that on the Elder and force the opponent to chum block. So yeah. I guess we could have attacked first, see if the opponent blocks or not, but... So our opponent is chumping, falls to 3, and yeah, all of a sudden they can't really make any attacks with their Dread Wanderer. Champion can't block, so that one's probably getting in there. Alright, that's fine. So we can put our opponent to 1. Quite a few top decks that just kill our opponent as well. Another Dread Wanderer. Could be annoying here. Just found a mountain. So yeah, let's just get in there once again. Force the opponent to chum block. And then their Wanderer will come into play tapped, so they'll only have 1 blocker if they don't draw anything. And I think I'll play the Forest just to have even more Thrun activations available. So if they need a removal spell or a creature to block with, and alright, our opponent doesn't have it, I want to thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this gameplay, and as always, have a nice day. I also want to thank all my patrons for supporting the channel, and you can do so yourself as well over at patreon.com/LegenVD, where you get cool rewards for supporting the channel, as well as getting us closer to our goals, where with every goal reached, we will release an additional weekly series. So if you want to see more content, Patreon is the place to go.